Rightio, Matty. Episode 2 of, we're going to call it Behind the Tapes. Come up with that name. So episode 2, episode 1 got, I think we took over about 5,000 views and we tipped a few winners. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, g'day to you, Fitzy. Nice to be back for another week. Probably quite surprising that 5,000 people actually took the time to click on the link, considering it had our two mugs sitting in the front of it. So we'll take that as a win, and hopefully we can get bigger and better as we go on with a bit more time. And looking forward to looking back on what was a really busy week, but also looking ahead to what's coming up, because there'll be a big couple of weeks in the harness racing game. Of course, key date next week, the release of that final draft of the racing dates for next season, and of course, we're due to get some news soon too on what the stakes are going to look like for the 2020-21 season. So there'll be plenty of interest in that. Looking forward to looking into it with you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Matty. And yeah, some interesting times coming up. But we'll go back to and have a wee review of some horses last week. And you found one, well, you want to talk about one at Addington.
Yeah, Matuatana. Look, there's not a trotter going better than him in the country at the moment. You wouldn't think. Big performance on Friday night. You know, Gallop going around that first bend probably gave them 15 lengths. I know it wasn't the greatest field that he's raced since we come back from lockdown, but the times that horses go these days, it makes it incredibly hard to give up that much ground, loop a field, sit outside him and win. He's probably never going to be the full product, but gee, that was an impressive performance. You see Jared just sort of sitting there nursing him to the line, and if they can get him trotting solidly through that first 400 metres of his races from behind the tapes, come Dominion time, he's a sort of horse that could be a real serious player. So thought he was the horse that stood out for me last week. Fitzy, what about you?
Yeah, I think Nandolo stood out again. Obviously, he was our preview horse last week, but his run was massive. He had to check around Fabrizio and Blair Orange, who was unfortunately tipped out at the start, so he actually lost a wee bit of momentum there. And his last mile on the Stride Master was 2:54. So last mile and a half, sorry, 2:54, which is lightning quick, and just aims at the second Tuesday in November as his target. And I know Costa Hara is very excited about that, and so are the owners. So no, a super win there. And in Auckland, a really nice maiden debut by Hot and Treacherous, another Captain Treacherous 2-year-old.
Yeah, they're making a really good. You know, you're hearing really good things about them from trainers around Australasia. Of course, they created a bit of interest, but typical of a Hughes trained runner come out ready to win. And gee, it was impressive the way that it did it. I think, you know, it's the sort of horse that we're going to see go through the grades pretty quickly up in that part of the world. And nice to see the Hughes team with another really nice horse on the cards. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how far that one can go.
And obviously, Captain Treacherous doing a super job, and his fastest son, Captain Crunch, coming down to Australasia and booking out within about 5 hours for Alabar the other day with the limit coming in over there. So very exciting times for that breed. And another one, a return of a former top-class juvenile trotter due to injury, but he's back, Ultimate Stride.
Yeah, he was pretty impressive. Look, a long way away from the kind of horses that he's been racing in his career thus far was what we saw on Saturday at Invercargill, but fresh up after such a serious injury. And I see Phil and Matty both giving big plaudits to vet Peter Gillespie for the work that he's done on that horse. So big well done to him. He was just beast mode. Geez, he's got a beautiful way of moving. Matty looked like a passenger coming out of the gate, but it was hands and heel stuff to borrow a thoroughbred racing term down the straight. He did it nicely, and look, they're going to have some fun with him. Nice and patiently handled, I think, will be the approach with him. Reading a few reports of the media this week, so looking forward to seeing him back on the track. Of course, we get another nice one from that age group, stepping out again and Cracker Hill again this weekend down south. So the trotting ranks, I'm really excited about, Fitzy. I think we're in for a really good 12 months there. So that was the other impressive performer for us of an equine variety. But of course, we had a couple of personal efforts over the course of the weekend as well, and probably none more important than the return to the winner's circle of Ricky May, driving a whack and lass for his good mate Benny Hill. I wasn't on course, but I understand there was a bit of a round of applause, and you know that would have made the hair stand up on the back of most people, because we know what the path's been like to get to that point. win 2,950 for Ricky. So, look, he'll shake that off now and he'll be back to business as usual, I think. So, I'd expect quite a few more wins for him before the season's out. And a notable milestone picked up as well. Fitzy, I'll let you talk about that one a bit more.
Yeah, another great milestone. Obviously, Ricky was very good, and I was on course, and the claps from the crowd was very good. And we had one emotional Benny Hill there, so great day that was. And another milestone, Robbie Close picked up his 50th driving win for the season, so that's been his goal for a wee while. Was Robbie, and he was pretty happy to get that on one of Matt Purvis' runners, Jenna Bella. So great achievement there from Robbie. And another achievement, Logan Darby picked up his first winner in the amateur ranks up north driving win. So another great achievement there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a note to the Goose, I didn't realise he was related to Michael Walker. I saw the Pukana there after the winning post. So hopefully we see a bit more colour like that as we roll through the racing season and into next season, because those sort of moments are quite cool, and it grabs the interest of people outside of racing. You see drivers and jockeys and trainers and all that doing those sort of things. So yeah, well done to the man they call Goose, and also to Logan Darby on that first driving win at Alexandra Park on Friday night.
Rightio, a new addition to our podcast is Brittany Graham from Australia, who we're going to check in with and see what's happening over the ditch. So, Brittany, what's happening over there first of all, and one I spotted the other day, Ride High.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrew. It's good to be involved, and no, plenty still happening over here. Of course, we continued to race right through, so plenty of our open class, better class horses have still been going around. And yeah, Ride High, he was unbelievable there last weekend at Melton, like a 52.7 last half. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a quicker last half, and if I have, then it certainly hasn't really stood out to me as much as his did, because he was incredible. Such an untapped talent. He's only had 12 starts, 11 wins now, and obviously been injury plagued throughout his career, but you can see over the concluding stages here, I think the amazing bit about it was, one, he didn't have anyone to go with him to run that 52.7 last half. I don't think Kima turned the stick on him. I don't think that she pulled the earplugs either. So you can see that there was plenty left in the locker from watching it. And yeah, he's a very, very exciting pacer, still only 5, but he's had his fair share of issues, but we just have to cross our fingers and toes now that he can stay sound, because if that was anything to go by, he could be anything over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think did we think he was pretty good when Clayton decided it would go in his name, or I think that was something that over our side of the ditch went, okay, there must be a pretty serious rap on this horse.
Yeah, I think he's always been at the top of Clayton's list. And yeah, I certainly thought when I saw him pop into Clayton's name, you don't see him train many. And for Ride High to be there, that was certainly a light bulb moment. And I think, yeah, as I mentioned, he could be anything. We just have to cross everything that he stays sound, and we can see him maybe do a bit of travelling over the next couple of seasons. Who knows? There's been a few questions that maybe he could come over to your side of the ditch. So I'm sure that you guys would love to see him over there as well.
Oh, definitely on that performance. I think we'd love to see him over here. A wee bit of a Kiwi connection in there. Second was the former Stonewall stud trained, and they still own it, Step Up. So that was pretty good to see. And hey, we've got some Group 1s coming up over that side of the ditch on Friday night at Gloucester Park, the Allwood Stud 2-year-old Westbury Classic. Have you spotted one in there for us to have a bet on, perhaps, or do you know anything about anything there?
Yeah, over in the West, they've really continued, I guess, transmission normal. Over in the West, they've run all of their feature races that they had programmed, and they've managed to keep things ticking along really, really nicely. So kudos to, I guess, the powers that be over in the West. But there's 2 Group 1s on Friday night. In fact, one for the 2-year-old fillies and one for the 2-year-old colts and geldings, West bred, as the name suggests. So they're all West Australian bred paces, and for $80,000. The fillies is stifled by a very exciting filly, number 2, in Blackjack Baby. Now, she's only had 7 starts for 6 wins, and she was only defeated into a minor placing back in March, and she was basically freshened immediately after that. So she probably just come to the end of that first campaign, but she took on a West bred fillies race back last week, and she was just dominant. I think she won by 18 metres or something on that occasion, and now she's been dealt the 2 draw, so she's been installed as a really short price favourite, and she should be super hard to beat. But the Colts and Geldings is a little more open. Give Us Away for Team Bond has come up with the coveted 1 draw. We know how important that is around Gloucester Park, and although he was beaten about 25 metres in the Pearl Classic a couple of weeks ago, now that he's got that coveted 1 draw, he's been a big shortener in the market. Laverajo, I think, has probably been the horse that's been the most consistent over this season. I think he's having his 14th start already for a 2-year-old, so he's had a really, really busy season, but he was second in the Pearl Classic, so he wasn't beaten all that far. He was a beaten favourite in that race, but he certainly didn't disgrace himself. And then a horse like Power Play has won too. So I think the fillies, they're really going to be struggling to beat Blackjack Baby, but the Colts is a little more open. So they'll be good races to watch on Friday night.
Very good, and it's quite interesting just looking at the fields here. Usually those feature races dominated by Bonds, Hulls, Prentice, obviously having a huge run of late, but it's really good to see some lesser known names in there with a runner in the Group 1s, and as you say, I haven't heard of Shane, who trains Blackjack Baby, but good luck to him if it's a very talented filly, so that's very good. Next race we're heading to, so Redcliffe's on Saturday night, the Redcliffe Yearling Sales Group 1 for $100,000, obviously in your neck of the woods and up there in Brisbane, so you've got some interesting stats on some runners in that field.
Yeah, really looking forward to getting to Redcliffe on Saturday night as well. I obviously haven't been working a great deal with the pandemic taking, I guess, over a little bit, but looking forward to getting out to Redcliffe. This is their feature night each and every year, and their only Group 1 that they hold each year as well. It's also run in conjunction with their Redcliffe Cup. Normally this meeting has the Oaks and the Derby as well, but they've sort of been shelved for the time being. But yeah, they're only Group 1 of the year. It's for horses who went through their sales. They generally have their sales in March and April. And we sort of only have 2 yearling sales in Queensland, the APG sale, which is early on, and then we moved to Redcliffe. And this has been really well supported. I think it's been running for about 12 years now. And they've done a really good job, and I think it's a real bargain sale, and that's certainly on show on Saturday night. The highest priced purchase to make the final is the 9 Sweet Lomba with Sweet Lou Gelding. He was $20,000. The favourite is by Pet Rock, Manila Playboy, and he was a buyback at about $8,000. And there's a runner going around by the name of Melton Insulted, number 4. And this filly was passed in for $200 and retained by her breeder and owner. So they're having a crack at $100,000 on Saturday night. Well done to them. She's by Hurricane King Cole as well, who did a really good job with his first season last season. So I really enjoy this race every year, and it has thrown up a very good one. And Governor Jujon was this winner last time, or 12 months ago. So he's sort of at the top of the tree here in Australia in terms of 3-year-olds, certainly in Queensland. He's our best 3-year-old. He went through it a couple of seasons ago. He did the big double taking out the 3-year-old series last week. But Manila Playboy, he's come up with the inside second row draw, which is quite tricky around Redcliffe. It's a very odd track, 3 turns. So Kelly Dawson will really have to, be at her very best to get him home. But I think that he's a really classy commodity. I've liked what I've seen from him so far, and he broke the track record and did it with the earplugs in and did it pretty easily in his heat last Friday night. So he's the one I'm sticking with, but it's going to be a really interesting race. I'm looking forward to it.
And hopefully, obviously, you purchased some at the Redcliffe sale this year, so hopefully those ones that you managed to syndicate, you can have a runner in this field next year. Yeah,
I actually went down last Saturday. One of them was the yearlings have come back in, and one of them was having a little snooze, and I whispered in his ear that he needs to get his act together, because hopefully in 12 months' time he'll be taking on that race. He's a changeover. We really like the changeovers, but yeah, fingers crossed he can be there next year. But it's a great sale, because it really is one that sort of everybody's budget can sort of be catered for. So no, looking forward to Saturday night, and hopefully in 12 months' time we're there.
Perfect. And as we're talking about yearling sales, and there was a wee cap which came out recently, 150 cap on breeding numbers. What are you hearing from people in Australia about it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to everyone, really. Maybe a bit more of those who are in the know had some idea that it was coming. I certainly hadn't heard any whispers, but yeah, I think it was just more of a bit of a shock factor, and the fact that it was, you know, being implemented for this breeding season, which is so close. So I mean, it's probably not surprising that it's been floated and has come into fruition. Probably most expected it maybe to be phased in, and it has set a little bit of panic, I think, into breeders as well that are wanting to get into, you know, the Always Be Mickey's. Captain Crunch, he was, you know, full and closed within 24 hours. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out. We had a conversation on In the Gig probably 4 months ago about how we can improve and sort of bolster the numbers of our colonial stallions. And this was something that we discussed. I'm not sure if it's going to help the colonial stallions a great deal. I think it's probably going to assist those maybe second tier stallions that if those who can't get into the likes of the Always Be Mickeys or maybe the Better's Delights can, you know, sort of jump into those guys. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm all for giving colonial stallions a bit more of a go. So if this can help them, I'll be happy to see how it plays out, and hopefully everybody sort of gets shared around a little bit more now. Pet Rock, I don't know, he might be on his way up. I think he has frozen semen now that comes down, now that he's got a really nice 2-year-old, and there's a cap on a couple of the other big boys. Who knows what can happen.
Perfect. No, very good, and we'll keep our eye on that over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see what emerges from that. But thanks very much, Brittany, for joining me today, and hopefully we can make this a regular occurrence so people in New Zealand can keep up to date with what's happening over the ditch.
No worries. Thanks, Andrew. Keep up the good work.
We thought it might be just worth having a wee chat about probably a bit of a developing story and something to get maybe a wee bit interested in over what's going to be the last 5 weeks of the season. 2 of our premierships are already won. Shock horror if Flair Orange got beaten the Drivers' Premiership with his lead. It would be probably shock horror if Robert Dunn got beaten the Trainers' Premiership. So those awards could probably be handed out now, even though there's 5 weeks. But the Junior Drivers' Premiership, Fitzy, is one that I'm quite keen to talk about. Johnny Morrison drew level with Sheree Williamson, of course, Johnny the defending champion. The pair of them have got 29 wins apiece. But there's a bit of a logjam below them, and with a bit of racing still to go, it's really anyone's game at the moment. You've got Johnny and Sheree on 29, Dylan Ferguson 27, Ben Hope, who's been the big mover in the last few months, and you'll talk about that in a minute, on 25, and Sarah O'Reilly on 22. So it's going to be an interesting wee race to the last day of July for that Junior Drivers' Premiership.
Yeah, a really interesting battle just starting off there, and kicking back since lockdown. Obviously, losing 2 months of racing would affect some of them. But Ben Hope, he's started back 6 wins since lockdown return. Sarah O'Reilly, I think she's on about 3 or 4 since lockdown. So those two are making big ground on the leaders above them, and Ben's only 4 off. So with most of, basically has the pick of his dad and mum and dad's team. You know, he's on the current form, the Hope barn and Ben Hope's showing in the Drivers' Championships. He'd have to be hard to beat, wouldn't he, Matty?
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Look, I think John Morrison's got one thing in his favour, and that's that he can trek his way down to Invercargill every week and get close to a full book. You know, he's 8 or 9 drives this weekend down there, and they're not the worst drives either. You know, he's going down there on the weekend with some pretty big winning chances, I think. And Johnny's willingness to do that and the support that he gets from the trainers down there might just put him in good stead. But, you know, you never write off Sheree. If she gets into form, she could, you know, string them together. And probably the interesting one, Fitzy, and you'll be able to talk a little bit more on this because he's a mate of yours, is Dylan Ferguson's position, because he's getting some really, really nice drives up in the Cambridge, Auckland area, particularly those ones of Rogies. If he had a really good weekend where he picked up 2 or 3 winners, that's going to put him right up on top of the speed. So he might be the one to watch because the way he's going at the moment, there's a few wins in store for him before the season's out too. Yeah,
his team's really starting to fire, obviously being the stable foreman for Graham Rogerson. But I'd say something that might help his chances is when Robert Dunn's team in the north come back, if there's a few there, because he had been doing a fair bit of driving for Robert, and so has his dad. But, you know, before lockdown, he had been getting quite a regular amount of drives for Robert, so that could help him. But as you say, a numbers game, Johnny Morrison is definitely driving on average 17, 18 horses a week at the moment, whereas Ben's driving probably 10 to 12. top chances, and the other Sheree and Sarah, they can't be left out of it with the horses they pick up. They're picking up in these junior races. These top juniors basically have the pick quite often of the top chances in those junior races, and we're seeing on average 1, if not 2 junior races a week for them. So they're picking up good drives in those, as well as the support Crandell Getty and Nathan Purden are giving Sarah as well. So very interesting times, Maddie, and just it's going to be one to watch for us over the next 5 weeks. Especially, we've still got the junior champs to come. There was the announcement about that a couple of weeks ago that is going ahead after being initially shelved. Big support there from the industry, Tim Butt, Anthony Butt, a lot of clubs, yourself, everyone jumped in, put a wee bit of money in there, and they got a pool, and that will go ahead. So that's another thing those juniors have to look forward to. And I think they're aiming for 5 or 6 races on that. So you never know, that could be quite important to the junior champs.
Yeah, I think the only message that we can really give here, Fitzy, is to a man named Matthew Peden sitting up there in his nice warm office in Wellington. Matty, we'd like a market on the Junior Drivers Premiership. Open one up now. We'll keep spruiking it and we'll get some money involved. You set the prices and we'll take you on. So here's a call, Matt Peden. I want to see a junior drivers market open by the end of the week. We better start trying to make a bit of a difference here and throwing out a few different options. So there's the call. Hopefully we can get that on the board. Fitzy.
Definitely, and nothing more than Maddie Peden likes is being called out on video. So get that done, Maddie, and talk to who needs to be talked to. And we expect to see it up, eh?
Yeah, he owes me after a couple of short prices after we tipped a few on here last week. So we'll leave that one with you, Matthew. So another big busy weekend of harness racing ahead of us, and Fitzy and I have both done a bit of form and tried to find a few winners here to follow. But before we get into those, you can only recap and have a look back at the week that's been. Fitzy, probably the best way to say it is a lot of seconds. Few winners in there, a couple of a nice price. Lulu Le Mans and Payment Plan both paid really good money, I thought. So nice to get some results on the board. But look, there was a couple of things, and I know it frustrated you as well, because you and I went head to head on a chocolate fish in the maiden at Addington on Sunday. And stand start, 2,000 metre stand starts at Addington, they've got to sort them out, because that was just an abomination of a standing start. They started in the formation of a V with the horses drawn in the middle, effectively drawing what would be a 3.5 line, effectively. And that took, True Hawk and Buckskin, who are generally good beginners, right out of play from the outset. It's been something I've noticed at Addington for a very long time, that 2,000 metre start. Traditionally, it favours the horses drawn to the outside. They come in and they get that slingshot, and often the horses drawn right down near the inside can be, anywhere from 2 lengths to 2.5, 3 lengths away from the horses starting on the outside. So a bit frustrating to see those, and we don't want to be hypercritical all the time, but something that's got to be sorted out.
Yeah, it's been something that's just bubbled away for the last probably 2 or 3 years, really, especially in Canterbury. And if you pause that race where the tapes were let go, yeah, it wasn't pretty to look at. And I know a lot of the drivers are aren't happy about it, a lot of trainers, and it's not a good thing for punters to see that either. So it's something that's we've got to sit down and actually either figure out a one way that it's going to be done and everyone's on board, or probably we need to change a starter, and that's just simply what it comes down to. So there's 2 options there. Let's sit down. I think this is what the drivers and trainers are saying. They're saying, let's sit down and actually figure out, what are we doing here? Are we doing it like an old school stand? We're walking up, standing, then we're happy to go? Because at the moment, that's what I think we're aiming for. But horses are playing up, and then we're like we saw a couple of weeks ago in that quick sport race. They were all standing perfectly, and they just waited for one horse out the back that was playing up. And by the time it was ready to go, a few of them reared up and they missed their opportunity. So it's something that needs to be looked at quickly. And I know it's something that's boiling up, and probably if it's not sorted in the next wee while, it could cause something else. So it was a bit disappointing. Obviously, Buckskin still beat True Hawk home, so chocolate fish coming my way, which is very good. I'll enjoy that one, but something that needs to be sorted.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think the 2,000 metre stand probably looks worse because you side onto it, whereas the 2.6 stand at Addington, when you're watching that, you're obviously looking straight down at it. So perhaps perception is a little bit different because of the way that you're looking at it, but no doubt the feedback from the drivers out there that something needs to happen, and that's on the Horsemen's Association really to step up and advocate for the horsemen. So, look, the racing week kicks off Thursday night at Cambridge. Fitzy, and you think you found one for us early on in proceedings. Talk us through why you're going with a horse called Whimsical Whisper early on in the night.
Yeah, Whimsical Wizard, I think it is, which is very. We were struggling before this of how you pronounce it, but I think we've got it right. And race 1, Maiden Trotter. So going against probably all of my rules of what to have a bet on, a Maiden Trotter from a stand. But no, he looked pretty nice at the trials, and Brent Mangos and Ken Safon, they're a pretty good team when they join up. So I'll be happy to start off Cambridge, hopefully with a winner there.
Perfect. I thought Red Reactor in race 9, number 6, was a bit of a chance on Cambridge on Thursday night. Addington again takes the Friday spot. Look, I think everyone's probably going to be wanting to be involved in this horse, but I'll head to race 3, number 6, Midnight Dash. Ben Hope, Greg and Nina Hope. We've talked a lot about this sort of formation already today. And of course, second behind Matuatana, who we've also talked about. So back to the mobile. Pretty serious horse. Evidence as shown probably in that performance last week behind Matuatana. So thought it would be very hard to beat. Race 3, number 6, Midnight Dash on Friday night at Addington. What do you find there?
Sticking with the Hope team, really. Euro Cash. I know they have a huge rap on this horse. So yeah, I'll stick with the Hope team and their form lately. Wouldn't be a surprise to see them get 2 or 3 winners on Friday night.
Perfect. Then we head down to Invercargill, as we have done for the last few weeks on Saturday. I thought I might have found one at a bit of value here, and it's surprising that it's a value runner considering it's a Blair Orange Michael House combination. They generally start pretty short. It goes around in race 6. It's number 9, Raka Beach. If you go back and have a look through the tapes, its performance behind She's a Sport last Saturday was very good. Never really got warm, but did hit the line with a bit of purpose. Tricky draw, one on the second row, but if Blair can find a nice path, which he invariably does, he gives every one of his drives the perfect chance. I think it's a bit of a chance at a nice price. So race 6, number 9, Raka Beach. Then we round out the weekend, Fitzy, back at Addington on Sunday, and I know you're quite keen on one there, one we've already talked about in the last couple of minutes.
Oh, look, I've got to stick with Buckskin. Missed the start the other day due to what we just talked about, and was out the back and put a massive run in for third, and was probably 5, 6, if not 7 wide around the bend and flew home. So I'm going to stick with him. He deserves a win sometime soon, and I think it will be on Sunday. What do you find there, Matty?
Yeah, I was quite keen on perhaps one at a bit of value as well. It goes around in race 5, number 10, Ghost Rider. From the Bob Butt stable. If it can recapture some of its best form that we saw probably pre-lockdown, where it was running around in pretty good intermediate grade races, I thought it was a big chance. Has to step away from the stand. It's 3-0 from a stand, so we'll have to rely on Bob Butt's magic hands to get it away. But I thought if it did, it was in an even field and it was a good chance. So race number 5, number 10, Ghost Rider for me on Sunday.
Yeah, and we might have to go double or nothing on the chocolate fish, because going back to your Invercargill selection there, which was Raka Beach, I'm going to stick with Ivana Legacy after the other day. 3.30 a place, I think it paid, and only beaten right down the outside by She's a Sport. If you haven't seen that replay, that was a win to watch, but I'll stick with Ivana Legacy, and we'll see if I can get 2 chocolate fish out of your way.
Yeah, well, you go and watch that replay and have a look at Raka Beach getting home late once it finally got clear. Look, that brings us probably to for another week, and Fitzy got some great feedback last week, but we're always encouraging anyone to reach out to us if they've got any comments or feedback or anything that they want to see. So I guess the best way is just to hit us up on social media or through through Facebook or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Facebook. Man, Matty, as you said last week, we're pretty vocal on social media, so it's easy to reach us. Twitter, we're all on there at the races. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed this episode, and we've changed it up a bit, obviously bringing on Brittany and just changing up what we talk about and trying to add a bit more interest for people that can watch and have something to watch on their Wednesday night. So yeah, hopefully everyone's enjoyed it, and we'll try and tip a few more winners this week, and we'll be back next week and add in any more suggestions that people have.
Sounds good. I'll throw a little bit more weight towards this chocolate fish bet. If Ivana Legacy beats Raka Beach home, my mother will be rapt because I'll shave this off before we jump back on the screens next week. So until then, Toodaloo, hopefully you enjoy the racing weekend and find a few winners. So we'll talk to you again in 7 days' time.